Hello, my name is Chris Cardillo. I'm the IT Director for Kozak, Chopin, and Throckmorton in Miami, Florida. I am also the coordinator of lawfirmtechnology.com, Inc. and virtuallegalshow.com, which we're having our first event on November 18th. This event, or this speech, is based on law firm security, protecting your firm from threats. Before I begin, I want to talk about a few of the resources that I've used in the past that I think be very important for you to have available to yourself. Don't worry too much about making too many notes here, because I do have a PDF for you to download at the end of this, and I will show you at the end where to download this. So pay attention right at the end. I'll give you that link. So without further ado, I'm just going to describe a couple of these people and what they do, and some of the things that if you don't work with them, maybe you'll work with somebody in your area that does similar type of work that these guys do. Mark Akins, he's a compliance and security testing person. He's a certified ethical hacker, which is a nice way of saying he's a hacker. And but he does it ethically, so he does it with your permission to test to see what kind of vulnerabilities you may have within your infrastructure. He does many other things as well, but that's one of the key features for this presentation. Forensics analysis, Matthew Thomas. He's with US InfoSec, and we use them quite a bit in our e-discovery work. They're very good at what they do. They have a lot of ex-NSA, CIA type guys, so they know forensics at a very high level. So sometimes if you're looking for a real needle in a haystack type of thing, that's the kind of work that they do. Then we have Tom Garcia, who is another guy that he's with the InfoSite, and he's excellent at implementing firewall monitoring, archiving, spam filtering, and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of those type of services out there. I think Tom is one of the best, and I definitely recommend his services as well. So let's get started here. What my definition of security is a little bit broader than what I think you may see out there. You may go to a number of these security seminars, and you may see a lot of things being thrown out there about hacking and spyware and malware and all of that type of thing. But you'll never see what I'm going to talk about right now. And I think this is probably the most important thing to focus on. And I'll explain that in a second here. But so security is the art of identifying potential threats that may do harm to the law firm and taking decisive action or to plan for, eliminate, or take measures against these threats. A thorough security analysis encompasses much more than technology systems. It involves every facet of the firm's operation, and as a result, all employees, directors, lawyers, and upper management. So, in short, what I'm saying here is that, and this is hard pill to swallow for a lot of those tech firms out there that are selling services related to security. But some of the most important threats are non-technology related. So if you're only looking at technology as a threat, you're missing a huge part of the picture for security, and taking action is you're missing the boat. I mean, so you're missing a lot. So anyway, I'm going to get started on starting with the first part of it, which is non-technology related, and and we'll get started there. Okay, so considering security as a whole, prioritized by the biggest threats. So I'm going to start with economic threats, which is probably something that you maybe you don't really think of that, but I mean, certainly, you've seen the news and the economy, how bad it is, and all of that type of thing. But what you've never probably thought of is how bad that kind of affects law firms. I'm going to put that as number one priority, is working on economic threats, because that is probably one of the two things that have actually destroyed a law firm. I have yet to see, and I've looked everywhere, to find a hacking attack or some sort of malware virus or something like that, or some sort of computer related whatever, destroy a law firm. I mean, they can cause business interruption. You have insurance for that. They can cause pain, long late nights for the IT people, but it certainly has not destroyed the law firm, as opposed to the top two things here, which I think are the most important things you can focus on. And actually, the top three even: economic threats, ethical threats, and compliance readiness law for law firms, management threats. And so we'll talk about those three first. So that's kind of like the first section of this security review. Then the bottom part is starts talking about the actual physical threats of the building, where maybe your infrastructure is, where your people work, where your computer systems reside, right? Then we're going to talk about direct scam attacks, and also computer-based threats. And I put it all the way at the bottom, not because it's unimportant, but and remember, I am an IT director, so I mean, I do highly think that it's very important. But it's certainly, when you start looking at some of these other high-end threats that have actually destroyed firms, I think you have to put it in perspective. Plus, so much has been already written about computer-based threats, but I will cover every single one of those. So, stay in tune for that towards the end. Okay, so what do these dead law firms have in common? And I just want to preface this by saying, listen, I'm going to be naming some names here, and I'm calling some firms out here, and it's not because I want to demean anybody here, but I think putting these things out there and saying, hey, these are real threats. These are firms that have actually gone under for one reason or another, unrelated to technology and related to security threats, threats that have actually destroyed their firm. And so these are great examples. Go back, do some, do your own research on these firms and find out exactly what it was that actually destroyed these firms. These are great firms. I mean, Heller, Ehrman. I can tell you for a fact that I used to read quite a bit about the IT director at Heller, who was probably one of the best IT directors around, and he was always getting awards, and probably one of the most highly touted guys. Of course, it was a big firm. They represented Microsoft. They had a lot of technology, and he did a lot of innovative things. So it was a great firm. But anyway, the firm no longer exists, as far as I'm aware. Brobeck, Fledger, I don't really know too much about that firm. Wolf Block, Thelen, Morgan Finnegan, but they all have a similar issue. They have a similar issue to some of the nations that are facing some problems: Portugal, Greece, Spain, Italy, and Ireland. So economic threats destroyed all of them. Well, of course, those nations are still hanging on right now by a thread, but they may be bailed out. Of course, I've never seen a nation really go bankrupt in the way that I think somebody's going to bail them out, but nobody bailed out these firms, and that's the bottom line. So when we're talking about threats, you got to look at economic as one of the key and one of the most important threats that we need to focus on. And this goes way beyond the technology person or even a firm admin person. We're talking about the managing partner, the managing committee. Those type of people have to be involved in understanding what those threats are before they happen. So let's look at some of these firms. Heller Ehrman was a big .com bubble bursting casualty. So same thing with Brobeck. Wolf Block was part of the real estate recession blow up. They were part of the credit constriction problem. So when credit gets removed, then you have problems getting getting your firm lent money, and that's part of the problem. Maybe you have a line of credit, and that could be a big problem for you if if that flow of money gets ended or shortened or something like that. Hethelen, another .com crash victim. Mass departures from that firm. It's another big threat. Is a lot of times, and you can check with your bank, and I recommend this highly, because a couple of firms actually went belly up, not because they weren't good firms. They have excellent attorneys, excellent people working for them. They just happen to be in a place where several attorneys decided to depart from that firm at the same time. When that mass departure happens, the bank may have a clause that says, upon massive changes in the structure of the partnership, we can stop your line of credit or freeze your line of credit. And just that minimal thing can destroy your firm. I mean, if you depend highly on that line of credit to make payroll and to run the firm, you're going to be in. There's a real threat there if you have quite a few attorneys that leave at the same time. So that becomes extremely important to watch out for. Keeping people happy and making sure that if there's a defection, that there's that you check with your line of credit, check with your bank, and make sure that they're aware that you're taking measures and you're not going under and your credit's good, and so that there's no pressure for them to stop your line of credit or freeze assets. Again, we got Morgan Finnegan, 33 attorneys defected, triggering a clause in Citibank's line of credit, forcing them to liquidate. That firm, there was an article I read that they were given 1 week to find a merger candidate, sign the merger papers, otherwise the bank would force them to liquidate. And they feverishly tried to do everything they could to sustain the firm by merging with a bigger firm, or at least another firm that had more money, and it didn't happen, and so the firm went under. So again, we got Portugal, Greece, Spain. Credit crunch is a bad global economy. So economics is economic threats are very, very, very important to take a look at, as a potential security threat. All right, economic threats. Okay, so we've got quite a few threats to look out for here. We've got entire areas of practice which are eliminated almost overnight, and we have a few examples here, like the real estate, the collateralized mortgage obligations, the initial public offerings, intellectual property, especially in the Silicon Valley, capped rewards potentials on certain types of claims have actually destroyed certain types of law. So if you depend solely on one type of law, which has a or is threatened by maybe some sort of litigation to reduce your fees, you have to make sure that you're load balancing, to use an IT term, or diversifying, if you're going to use an economic term, to diversify your practice, to make sure that if one well dries up, you got another one to drink from. So economic downturn, making it hard for existing clients to pay fees. Now that's a big one. A lot of us are facing that. So you have to be aware of that as a problem. Sometimes just getting your bill out right on time, can increase your fee structure. Increase what you're actually going to get return on. Look, if they get your bill before the other guy, and they're going to pay your bill first, hopefully, and that's the idea there. So if they have the choice, between or you wait 60 days or 90 days to get that bill out, well, you may not get paid, or you'll get paid a lot later. So make sure that you get those bills out fast. One client with, if you have one client with 50% or more of the firm's revenue, that's a threat. May not think of it as a threat, and you say, well, I've got a great relationship, this will never dry up. I can tell you, I've seen it happen. If that client leaves, or that case is over, or maybe that firm could even go bankrupt. Let's say that company goes bankrupt. You're in trouble, because 50% of your wealth is or your income is based on that one client. So make sure you don't have that problem. So lower that fee. Or lower that amount. If you have to diversify, do whatever you can to make sure that it's down to 25%, let's say, or 15% of what of all the other income that you're making. So devaluation of the dollar, depression or hyperinflation. Well, right now we're in a very precarious situation with the American dollar. And I'm kind of a economic buff, so I read a lot. And there's a lot of scary stuff out there, and that's not what I'm trying to do here. But what you should do is definitely take a look at what do you have in dollar assets. And remember, you've got your entire firm is based on dollar. So maybe your firm is there, your house is in dollars. You live in America where everything is based in dollars. So what happens if the dollar completely gets devalued because excess spending or whatever is happening out there? So what can you do? So if you can diversify outside of the American dollar and make sure you have assets outside of there, then you're better served. So just keep that in mind. That is a threat. Having all your ducks in one breadbasket. You wouldn't have thought of this maybe 10 years ago, but certainly today, that is a serious issue. And start doing some of your own research on the dollar. Okay, Difficulty borrowing even an existing line of credit. That could be a killer. We talked about how lines of credit get cut, and that has caused some firms to go under. Another big one is the removal of the dollar from the world reserve currency, and that can drive oil prices way up. Imagine paying $50 a gallon, as opposed to $3 or $4 a gallon. What would that do to your firm? I mean, what kind of things can you do today to protect against that? Maybe you have some remote access or capabilities for your employees. I mean, I'm sure an employee making $30,000 is going to have a lot harder time getting to the office with $50 gas. So I mean, these are just some things to start thinking about. I'm not saying it's going to happen, and I sure as heck don't want it to happen, but these are threats to start looking for. I mean, as an IT guy, I'm always thinking about what's the worst case scenario, what could happen. And you're thinking about hurricanes and tornadoes and those type of things. I mean, the 9/11 type scenarios and stuff. Well, those scenarios happen in every other aspect of even the economic ones, and you need to start thinking about those as well. So it's these hurricanes are almost easy to prepare for. But and if you're only preparing for those, and you're not preparing for economic threats, you're going to be taken by surprise if something bad really does happen. Another couple of things that are kind of troubling out there: the derivative exposures. I read about several banks having over in excess of $200 or $300 trillion in derivatives, and Warren Buffett, who's one of the richest guys in the world, calls it the weapons of mass destruction. And he actually lost a bunch of money on a derivative exposure he actually had himself. So I mean, he's well aware of the threats there. It's like taking a gambling bet, and the U.S. government can't support these banks if they ever went bankrupt. I mean, FDIC insurance is minimal compared to $200 or $300 trillion. So keep that in mind. Do some of your own research on that. It's very troubling. Massive current debt, rising debt obligation from the baby boomers. Everything. Again, having everything in the U.S. basket. Your business, your dollars, your assets, your clients. And the other thing too here is retaining key rainmakers when profits or outlooks go down. That's critical. It's very important to keep people happy, especially your most key people that bring in the bread. So and they're not always looking for the money aspect. So you got to find out what it is that they do want. Pride in their work, and enjoyment in the office experience, and all of that stuff goes a long way. So keep that in mind. So here's your economic best practices. Diversify your practice. Pay yourself first. This is a hard one, but if your firm is judicious and saves 10% each year to create a cushion, that can protect your firm against downturns long term. Make sure that the one client or one industry or one practice area comprises no more than 25% of the company as a whole. So so if you have real estate, if you're in real estate, make sure that's only 25% of your business. Try to diversify and get out into 3 or 4 other areas that you can build up simultaneously. So if one dries up, you're not going to be hurting really badly. Don't ever stop marketing. Market when you are busy and when times are slow. Now remember, marketing has a delay effect of 6 to 24 months or more. Especially I'm talking about down here in Florida. Especially, we're not, I mean, there's some other markets that have a kind of a quicker turnaround, but down here it's about the relationship and the long-term relationship that you may have with your client, and that relationship takes time to develop. So 6 months to 2 years. I mean, you're talking about a long time to develop that relationship. So if the well dries up now, the work that you've done for the last 2 years will sustain you. Now, if you hadn't been doing any marketing, and all of a sudden the well is dry today, your chances of finding some business immediately is going to be harder. So you want to be building that relationship base and doing that long term. So law firm leadership is critical. Keep personnel happy. Avoid mass defections at all costs. Diversify your assets into other classes. This is something that talk to your financial people, of course, but having multiple currencies and alternative currencies like gold and silver. I think at some point that'll be a bubble, but it keeps hitting higher highs, and there's a reason for that. And like I said before, there's a reason for the fear that people have with the economic threats that affect the American dollar, and that's why there's so much going into gold and silver. So having a little bit of that, probably would be a good thing. So keep that in mind. Maybe that's not the only thing. There's also other dollars to buy. For example, like the Australian dollar, and maybe the Canadian dollar, and some of the other currencies that you can diversify in. And this way, if something terrible were to happen, at least you have some sort of cushion to weather the storm. Importance of law firm leadership. I'm a big believer in leadership. I actually hired a leadership coach myself. So I think leadership is critically important. It helps me, and it certainly helps other people that I've seen be coached by a leader. And leadership is something that is developed over time. So I think leadership can help avoid the massive turnover at your firm. It's disruptive and costly. Avoid mass defections. How can you do it? Creating the life-work balance. Listen. One of the things that I found is that listening to people is extremely important. I actually heard a joke about that where man was saying I had a conversation with another lady, and she didn't really say anything, and I was telling her my life story, and I could tell you that that was the best conversation I've ever had. And the moral of the story there is that people love to be listened to. She didn't have to say anything because she listened. He thought that she was probably the most in tune person with him, and she didn't have to say a word because she was listening so intently. Maybe she asked a couple of those type of questions that say, that you're really paying attention, and so that's important to people. Find out what other people or what people's key goals and their values are. Create a culture where you value others and their families, because people stay with firms when they feel valued. Rarely it's about the job itself or the money. Okay, I've seen where sometimes the job itself does play in a part to whether a person stays with the firm, but money is, if you make a few dollars more somewhere else, but you're really darn happy where you are, it's hard to switch. It's hard to move because you don't want to leave what you've got and end up somewhere else where you may not be as happy as you are, even if you are going to make a few extra dollars. So keep that in mind. It's not all about the money. Okay. So the next thing here, law firm management leadership is critical. So you need to set direction, involve the other firm leaders in your plan, create communication, make sure that other people are aware of the direction that you're setting, and get them on board. Gain momentum. Momentum is huge. You try to get larger and larger victories. If you haven't had a victory in a while, start with the smallest one you can accomplish quickly, and then build up from there. Hire the best people and the best companies to work with. Retain the best people and the companies. Alright, so here's a few other firms. A few of these are actually good friends of mine. So again, I'm sorry to call them out, but these guys all have something in common. So this is the next step in security analysis. Okay, here's a breakdown in the compliance systems that led to these firms' demise. For example, Adorno. There was inappropriate entry into a client escrow account, which was a problem, obviously. And that firm was a great firm. I have some great friends that were there, and some good people that worked there. Unfortunately, that caused that firm to be no more. Rothstein, the attorney that created his little Ponzi scheme, a fraud, and obviously that's something that the management participated in, or at least we think maybe they participated in it. So that's something. Certainly there's some bigger firms that that Anderson Consulting. There's another firm where it was probably too big for maybe everyone to be aware of what was going on there, but just the thought of the tainting of that firm by the actions of one of the partners was strong enough to destroy one of the biggest accounting firms in the world. So again, compliance is critical. This has actually destroyed law firms, and so be aware of that. Barenfeld, you got some bad accounting oversights in regards to this Rothstein case. Then we have a few others that had some data processing irregularities. I'm sorry about that. So again, we've got some things that are happening within the firm itself. So make sure your compliance systems are extremely right on. If you're people are doing conflicts checks and things like that, you got to make sure that that the conflicts check system is working. If you're putting in bad data, or you're not putting in enough data, you're missing some key elements which may expose you later on. So here's some of the threats. Proper billing practices, avoiding overbilling. You need to have a good billing software that can watch out for those things. Nobody can work more than 24 hours in any given day, and even 24 hours is obviously a red flag. Who stays up all night working on a legal case? You may work late, but 24 hours, you're not a doctor. So, you could put in maybe 20 hours. I don't know, but keep in mind that there's some red flags out there that you got to watch out for. Protecting your credit card. PCI payment card industry standards. Then there's also the Sarbanes-Oxley, the HIPAA, FISMA, FERPA compliance. So it depends on what kind of law you practice, but you need to look at what all the compliance issues that you're going to be facing. If you're dealing with healthcare, then probably the HIPAA stuff would be very important. So just look at what you do as a firm and the type of law that you practice, and just make sure that you're being compliant with all those things. Now, PCI payment card is very important. So if you do take credit cards from your clients yearly, you need to have your system checked for PCI compliance. And what this does is it looks out there and says that somebody's credit card information, which is private, should remain private, rather than having it in some open Excel document that anybody on the system can go in there and access and stuff. So you got to make sure that all that stuff is documented and tested. So annually, if you do collect credit cards, make sure that you do check with the and get your PCI compliance done. Good accounting practices like doing an accounting audit, do a penetration test, see if somebody could actually defraud you. Good stewardship of the client funds. That goes without saying, but it's important to say it. Look, law firms can be a very stressful place to work. Sometimes you just want to keep your attorneys happy, but if you are a firm admin or you're a financial person that works at a firm and you see something happening that is not within compliance, you need to raise hell to get that stuff taken care of. It's essential that those people feel that they have some level of ownership with the firm and some ability to say, hey, listen, I'm sorry, you cannot open that matter unless you have a conflicts check run. And if you're opening matters every single time with no conflicts or no items to check for conflicts, you're putting your firm at risk. You're putting your job at risk. You're putting the job of everybody in the firm at risk. So it's just not worth it. They may begrudge you a little bit, but it's worth it to make sure that everybody's aware that you're about compliance. You're about bigger things. You're about protecting the firm. And security is all about that. So this is incredibly important. Don't let that go lightly. So check your conflicts of interest and all of these type of things. Okay, protecting against physical attacks. All right, now we're going to move into kind of the second section here. Physical attacks is your physical environment. Where are you securing your paper checkbooks? Do you have those paper checkbooks even? But sensitive data, make sure that the building and the floor access is limited to only your authorized personnel. If you haven't installed a security system, maybe you need to. Keep close tabs on temporary and laborer staff. That doesn't mean that you don't look at existing staff that have been around for a long time, because a lot of fraud happens with internal people, even people that you've trusted and enjoyed working with for many years. So not everybody is needs to be scrutinized. Train the staff in security awareness. Know who are truly authenticated visitors, not thieves, hackers roaming the hall. Okay, so if you have some strange people walking around, that could be a problem. So people should be aware and not allow that to happen, right? Okay, so now we're going to talk about, let's see, protecting against direct scam attacks. There are tons of scams that are created every single day. We talked a little bit about the Madoff, the Rothstein, Stanford fiduciary, or some of the big examples of these, these things that have happened. But those are the big guys. But I can tell you that there are scams happening on a smaller level every single day. And down here in South Florida, there's a lot of scams. You know, I mean, I don't know why down here there's so many, but you know, it seems like that's a very standard thing. There's a lot of people out there trying to separate you from your money. So be always aware of protecting your money and everything else. Direct scams, so phony phone calls asking for credit card information, fake clients, fake invoice letters. Sometimes I've seen this, even myself with my small little company here, you know, where there was a fake Department of Corporations letter that came to me and said, you know, you got to pay $150 or whatever it was to this you know, these guys to protect your corporation from being dissolved. Well, you know, I called Department of Corporations and they said, yeah, this is a scam. Do not pay, obviously. You know, so check these things out. You know, if the bigger your firm is, the more of this stuff will happen. Okay, so you've got fake domain registration letters. This happens all the time. Fake magazine subscription renewals. Well, I mean, that may not be a scam, but it's certainly a tactic that I see a lot, especially with the law firm magazines that are out there. So you know, they're always pushing. You know, so you may end up with 6 copies of a magazine, you know, for your firm. You really only needed 1, but they'll still send it to all you know, 20 of your lawyers. Alright, so indirect scams, phishing attacks that are geared to trick users into entering password information or private information. Emails may come from friends or trustworthy sources such as banks or social media such as Facebook. Maybe bribes or offers of great wealth. You know, and I have yet to see you know, a big check coming to me from India or some of these places, Dubai or wherever. You know, and you know, you see a lot of these funny little emails that come through, but it's just ways to separate you from your money. Okay. Let's see. So inside information, undercover thieves, background checks. Alright, let's see. Let's go to the next slide here. Okay, viruses, malware, botnet attacks. So now we're talking about the IT realm of things, which is more my area. So we have malware issues. Everybody is faced with those. And what is malware? It's malicious software which targets the end users via web browsers, email attachments, or mobile devices and other sectors. You know, I mean, a good antivirus system can help protect against this. Now, it doesn't mean that it's the end-all be-all, but you know, it's a good start. There's a lot of other things that are out there that can help protect against malware. You know, even as you know, even on your firewall, I've seen, you know, you can have protection systems put in place. You got to be careful when you do that, though, because it can slow down your internet browsing. But you know, putting whitelists out there, like you know, or blacklist websites, you know, that should be blocked, you know, from the rest of the firm. So there's a lot of ways to protect your firm without you know, without putting too much of a heavy client out on your desktop. Client meaning, you know, the antivirus client that you're putting out there, because you definitely don't want to slow down your users from you know, being efficient. Other threats like the bots, Trojans and worms. Now, bots are kind of like, I mean, it's like the internet version of the mafia. So if you see the mafia movies and stuff, think of bots being the mafia of the internet. So they're out there trying to scam people out of their money in mass. They work together. They have hundreds and millions of computers. They try to infect millions of computers so that more of these computers can infect other computers and send them sensitive data that they can, you know, take, even if they're taking $10 away from, a million users, that's $10 million. So, it's big business. I mean, these guys are going out there and trying to steal billions of dollars worth of sensitive information or money through sensitive information acquisition. So you need to make sure that you're aware of that. Now, I've seen with certain firewalls there are some bot protection tools out there that you can buy. So there's security people all the time that are finding these bots that are being generated, and so you want to be able to update that regularly and make sure that you're protecting your users from identity fraud and things like that. Trojans and worms, these are basically similar to malware, but they can generate themselves and regenerate themselves on your network. I mean, probably you've heard of some of the things like I Love You or the NIMDA virus, which have been out in the last 10 years or so, and the Anacornicova virus. These type of things were like Trojans, worms that would just push themselves out there, using Outlook. And NIMDA was a SQL infusion or injected virus, similar to the Red Alert, I think, virus. So if you hadn't patched your server, you could get infected by NIMDA. And of course, there's kind of a balancing act there by IT. You have to make sure that a patch doesn't break what you just patched. So you got to be careful sometimes patching things, but don't wait too long, because if you don't patch it and a week later a day one virus comes out and wipes you out because you didn't make that patch or you didn't put that patch on fast enough. So that's something to it's always a balancing act. But be careful and try to do that. Try to get your patches done regularly and timely. So let's see, using antivirus programs that update daily, like the Trend Micro, AVG, Kaspersky, Norton. There's many of them out there. I've tried a number of them. They're not all perfect, so don't be fooled into false sense of security. But those things do exist, and you should have at least a antivirus on all your machines. Internal threats. Okay, so here's users that can actually come in and each individual user probably has things such as CD burners and USB ports on their computers, so they can illegally download different things. There's some tools out there that can lock down your PC, like Policy Pack, KeyAware. Just do a Google search. You can find probably hundreds of those type of companies out there. You can lock down all your PCs and limit access to the administrator user. You could use Citrix to deploy thin clients, or VMware to deploy virtual desktops in which you can auto-wipe user changes upon the next login. Okay. Use software alerts to inform you if users are extracting or emailing large amounts of data. These are all just tools that will help lock down your users. Cloud-based security. This is a big one. There's so much being said about the cloud and what the cloud is. It's a really hot topic. But the problem is with the cloud that the cloud is not secure. You have to be very careful, because who's running the cloud? Who is where is the physical cloud? Who has access to your data? What kind of technician up there has access to your data? Is the communications between the main office and the cloud secure? Is there some sort of encryption happening on that communication? What about the data backup and recovery procedure? Are they backing up your data? I mean, that's probably the biggest threat of the security, when you're, of a cloud-based system. Why? Because if they're not backing up your stuff, and there's, and it's always inevitable that a problem happens. Well, what happens to you and your data? Do you lose it all? I mean, you got to make sure that they are, backing up your stuff every single day, and your window of opportunity. Try to do a restore. Test those restores every so often, and if you're using the cloud-based, have them do the restore and say, listen, I'd like to restore a couple of mail items, or I want to restore a file just to test it out. Not that you need it, but you want to make sure that they can deliver the goods, and that they're aware that that you demand that they are backing things up for you. Mobility security. This is huge now. I mean, now everybody has a cell phone, PDA device like an iPhone, an iPad, Android, even the new BlackBerries, these things can be very, very insecure items if you're not careful about it. So if you can use SSL security sockets layer. Now, that actually got hacked recently, so that's not even the most secure thing, either. But at least it's what we've got. So use it. Use SSL. Having the ability to remote data wipe your device. Now, I guess the MobileMe, it's being replaced by the iCloud. So now with the iCloud, you can actually go out there and remote data wipe your iPhone. However, in your Exchange system, you probably can remote data wipe just straight from Exchange as well. So keep that in mind. These guys are basically walking around with access to your network with in the palm of their hand. They leave an iPhone or Android device in the back of a taxi. Whoever is sitting back there can pick that up and start accessing your network with that. So keep that in mind. That's very important. And then educating people to be aware that, hey, where is my device? Oh, I just left it in the taxi. Well, the first phone call that they should make is to whoever handles your security system, so that you can go in, log in, and data wipe that guy, before somebody else has access to it. Even go as far as changing their passwords and things like that. If you don't have a system that can integrate properly, then use a third-party solution, such as like a Notify Link, which can integrate with pretty much any type of device out there, and with almost any type of email system. So this way you kind of keep that compliance centralized. The BES server, the BlackBerry Enterprise server, is also another tool that people use you can do the data wipes as well. Wireless security. So wireless security is it's certainly part of the audit that you need to do. If you have a guest network, everybody has one. But make sure that you partition that off from the main network, so that people don't have access to your network through that network. I mean, that's pretty obvious, but it's very easy to make a switch change, and now people have access to your network through a wide open network. Putting a password, you should definitely put a password. You should never have an unsecured network ever. And the reason for that is that people can use your network for unsavory things. Let's say they're going to try to download some music or something that illegally, or movies illegally, or things like that. You don't want to be exposed to that kind of threat, because they can certainly come after you, or come after your firm, or even shut down your internet pipe for downloading illegally music or movies that they shouldn't be. Throttling speeds to limit the use of these wireless guest networks is something you should definitely do. So throttle it at If you have a 50 meg pipe, throttle it at like 1 meg. I mean, there's no reason that they need to have more than that anyway, right? So anyways, so that's something to definitely consider. Wireless telephony, that's important. I've heard of a firm that actually got hacked there. So the phone, if you have easy passwords there, hey, somebody can do a denial of service on your phone system. That's not going to be a whole lot of fun either. Laptops, unsecured network. When your attorneys are walking around with their laptops and they're accessing the office through an unsecured network, there's a threat there. It's better to give them a secure system, such as like maybe a Verizon card or an AT&T card or something like that they can dial in through, rather than have them use an unsecured network where hackers are just sitting there just for the fun of it, would love to just hack your partner's laptop and see what's going on. So another thing to watch out for is if people just want to turn off the security, just make their life easier. Security is a training thing. It's all about training them to be aware that there are secure threats, and there's people there that want to do harm to you and to the company. I heard of, although I couldn't find it on the internet, I was told that this was true, that there was a security audit of a very big financial company, and people were standing downstairs with candy bars and handing people free candy bars in exchange for their password. Well, a lot of people gave them their password in exchange for a Snickers bar or something along those lines. So that's obviously a training thing, but it's more than training, obviously. But be careful with that. I mean, your users could be some of the most insecure people in terms of security, and the biggest threat to your security. So training them and holding them to your ideals of security is important. Again, your mobile smartphones is another, it's wireless security, but there's rogue apps that can get out on those things. Like Android's has several rogue apps. So when they jailbreak these phones to get through and allow you to do certain things on the phone, unfortunately that removes some of the security that maybe iPhone or Android may have put out there. So make sure that you don't jailbreak if you can help it. So backup security. Well, backups today contain an entire image of the server because of virtualization, or at least you should have that. So if you're not there yet with your backup strategy, you should definitely be there. Well, unfortunately though, the bad thing is that that entire image can be mounted up, and now they have access to your entire server. Whereas before it was harder. When you had tape-based backup, they had to have a big, expensive tape drive, and then a server to restore it to, and the software to restore it from. But now with the the image-based backups, you still need the software, but it's much easier. It's faster. It's a cohesive file rather than splattered files all over a disk or a tape. So be careful of your backups. Where are your backups? Are they secure? Are they locked up? Where are you keeping them? Who has access to them? I've read of several reports where some financial companies were sending their backup tapes off-site. Like I don't know whether it was an Iron Mountain type of company. I don't know who it was, but and I'm not saying it was Iron Mountain, but what I'm saying is that it was like a company that stores backup tapes. Well, in the transition, and I have no idea whether it was the IT person handing it to the delivery person, or if it was the delivery person, or if it was related to the company, but somewhere along the way, those backup tapes were stolen, lost, or thrown out, or whatever. Something happened to them. Now, those backup tapes contained millions and millions of records of client records, and unfortunately that could be a real threat to your actual business. No, as it hasn't shut down a company, but it certainly makes people aware and wary of your company if you have a big security breach where a lot of sensitive client information is exposed like that. So be aware that backup tapes contain a lot of sensitive information. You should protect them. Securing the edge and hackers. When everybody thinks about security, this is what they're thinking of. They're thinking of hackers and firewalls, and of course you need a firewall. You need a good firewall. You need to start keeping your log files from your firewall, to see if there's somebody trying to hack in. You can have your firewall monitored, so it's 24/7. So if somebody's trying to hack in, there could be exploits to stop them or prevent them, or at least notify you of a threat. Somebody's actually trying to get in. I've read about some people trying to hack into some companies. Maybe they're just disgruntled clients or opposing clients or something like that. So that can be a real problem. So having those systems protected is essential. Every firewall has many add-ons, or most firewalls have add-ons. So take a look at what kind of add-ons your firewall has, and if you're buying a new firewall, make sure that you check into all the add-ons that the firewall has, such as a botnet, antivirus, the content filtering, the packet inspection. Again, you don't want to overload your firewall, and slow things down for your web browser people, but it's certainly worthwhile taking a look at some of those tools and being judicious and trying a tool here and there and see if it works in your environment. Close unnecessary ports on the firewall. So here's a couple of the firewalls to look at: the Juniper, Checkpoint, Cisco, Fortinet, SonicWall, WatchGuard, Palo Alto, Astero. So there's plenty of others out there. These are just some of the bigger named ones that you should definitely take a look at. Social networking threats. Here's a huge threat for identity theft. I saw a video, and all the big social network guys were there. The Facebook, Zuckerberg's sister was there, and there was the people from LinkedIn, and all these other different social networks. Twitter, all those guys were there. So anyway, one of the biggest threats that everyone was talking about was identity theft, and what do you do to protect yourself from identity theft? Well, obviously you don't want to friend anybody that isn't really your friend. That's one thing. Another thing is to not put private information out on those social networks. Another thing is to watch those chat systems that those social networks have. I've seen viruses come right through those chat systems. So, if at all possible, try to shut down the chat if you can, or the social network if you can. You may get a lot of backlash, and but I think it's worthwhile taking a look at. Hidden links using shortener sites such as Bitly can camouflage exe payloads. Remember, the exes are just those are the the installation files, which can really wreak havoc on your network. So people shorten these paths, these internet paths. So here's a link. Oh, here, check out this link. This is a really cool video you need to watch. And you click on it, and boom, it downloads this exe. Well, that's where a lot of viruses happen. There's also socially engineered attacks where email from social networks. Email from social networks is about 99% chance to being read. So that's why these hackers and these spammers and malware people are going after social networking people. There's what, 500 million people on, is that right? On Facebook. Is that million or billion? No, it's got to be million, right? So 500 million people on Facebook. That's a huge amount. It's like, a good chunk of the world is there. So if they can send out a virus attack on Facebook or Yahoo or any of these other places, they can really annihilate a lot of people, or actually if they're trying to extract money, like these bots. That's a great way to do it. So anyway, be careful, because social networks are made to be open and a little less secure. So be careful with that. Plus, there's also email on the social networks. So it may not go through your email spam filtering. It may not go through your compliance type systems. So some of the email that can go out through these systems could be compliance threats. So you got to be judicious of using these systems or allowing these systems to exist. Also keep in mind that there's some systems out there which allow a user to access these systems even though your corporate office may have shut down those actual websites. So they may use like relaying and different techniques to bypass your best efforts on the desktop to protect. Now, so one of the things that you need to do is make sure that you put that into your HR booklet, that if somebody was found to try to bypass your best efforts to block these sites, then that could be a grounds for termination. So put that threat out there, because it's important. Social network accounts are routinely hacked, creating potential embarrassing or worse situations. So you got to make sure that you protect those passwords, and that those passwords are actually very good, and you got to let the users know that those passwords are extremely important to watch out for. Don't put your birth date and things like that. Website security. This is a huge one. Almost every firm is starting to go to these WordPress websites, and WordPress is it's a great tool, but they're getting hacked routinely now. So you got to have you got to start looking at website security as one of your priorities. So your website can get hacked. People can start delivering downloadable exe files right off of your website, and you probably won't even know until somebody tells you about it. Some of the plugins can contain insecure code, so be careful about the plugins that you use. So the WordPress plugins, so be careful. Start researching, not just is it a cool plugin, does it work for what I'm trying to find, but is it a secure one? Are there insecure holes in there? Also, web application security is a huge issue. Of course, banks are big onto this, but they're not the only ones deploying sensitive information on the web. Many firms are doing that today, so be very careful with that. Increasing amount of collaboration with SharePoint, FTP servers, large file transfer programs such as YouSendIt, and many others. So also, this is a big one these days, the e-discovery platform security. So like if you're using Relativity, Case Vault, Lextranet, all of these hosted applications that you put your litigation support software on. Those things all need to be secure. So be careful, when you put a whole case of very sensitive information out there on the web. Obviously, you're doing it to maybe those you can't handle the amount of data on your internal systems, and so you host it out there. Or maybe you're trying to do a collaboration effort with co-counsel. But when you put out that sensitive information, just make sure that whoever's hosting it has their security stuff in line, and they're very well protected. Disposal of equipment. Now this really got a lot of press. Your copiers contain hard drives that should be erased forensically before they're given back to the leasing companies. But that's just that hit the airwaves pretty resoundingly loud, and everybody heard about it. And, but you didn't hear about some of the other things that could be out there, such as your actual computers. Most firms will go through computers every 3 to 5 years. Laptops probably more often than that. Each one of those systems have data on there that can be recovered if it's not forensically wiped. Even those little USB drives or USB sticks. Cell phone data may contain vital data on there, so you should wipe those things clean. Discard them, but after you've totally destroyed them. So you got to do what you got to do to protect your data that doesn't exist anymore, because somebody could be going out there and trying to resurrect that data and turning it into something that they can use to harm someone. So be careful with that. And it's not cheap. A lot of times you got to pay a little extra in order to get these things done. But it is important. Also, another thing I've seen is, and I actually saw this very recently, was that people are actually taking hard drives and they're buying hard drives which have encryption built onto them, and those drives now have codes and things like that, so that can protect you, from your maybe in transit between your office and maybe opposing counsel or co-counsel's office. So you can buy hard drives that have that kind of level of security built into it. You can also do encryption on your files. You can zip it up with encryption and put an encryption code on there, and that will also protect that data while it's in transit. Because if the mail carrier takes it and gives it to a friend or a scammer or some sort of person, they have access to whatever it is on an unencrypted disk. And that could be very very bad. Preparing against disastrous scenarios. Now here's where it really takes off. You start thinking about all the different threats. Earlier we talked about the financial threats, but here is kind of the standard stuff: fire, water damage, hurricane, tornadoes, terrorism, theft, sabotage, hardware failure, hardware or software mistakes, massive power outages, and of course I said $50 gas. So you gotta take all these things, and sometimes with a little grain of salt, but at least you can look at these situations and start planning where you're protected from some or more or all of these different threats that can affect your firm. Put your servers in a data center. Create remote access capabilities such as terminal server or Citrix, so that you can access this stuff in the event of a hurricane. Be careful with that though, because again, that's kind of putting your stuff out in the cloud, in a sense. So and you're susceptible to line outages. So if your internet-based line or your direct connection goes down, your office is completely down. So that's a problem that nobody really talks about when they talk about data centers. Well, so you got to balance that. Are you going to protect against a hurricane situation? Which one's more important? Data centers are not cheap, so just keep in mind that you have redundancies out there, redundant lines. Sometimes I've seen where there's two types of lines. You can have an internet-based line, you can have a wireless-based line, and that can add a nice level of redundancy. So if one is down, at least the other one is up. So you can have lots of different types of redundancy. Maybe even have like a Comcast or local cable company type line there as a backup to your main line, so that and then you can route that. So in your router, if one fails, the other one picks up, and that will protect you from massive outages. Creating replication or offsite backups. So remember, no matter where your backup equipment is, you need to have an offsite backup location. Even if you have it in a data center, you need to have some other place where that backup is taken to. Because if that data center ever or something ever happened in the data center or to that backup equipment, you're out of luck, basically. So and of course, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't back up to the same drive as your main data is on. So if you have just an enormous SAN and you've got space on your SAN, don't put your backup on your SAN. You need to have another device, and then you need to take something off site. That's critical. I like a 20 tape rotation. Of course, we're not talking about tapes, but we're talking about maybe hard drives. So 20 hard drive rotation. So you can do that, or at least have that stuff off-site. Maybe you can do it electronically and have like two different type of data centers. And there's plenty of backup solutions that are out there that can come in and do a wireless, a replication to their data center, of your data too. Be careful with that, because again, that can be security breaches there. But at least you're protecting against having all of your data in one place. Okay. Scanning all important paper documents, going paperless. I mean, this is critical. I mean, if you got a water, that's happened so many times, so many places, where the firm above you or a company above you has a water outage, and floods and destroys physical paper. Well, if you have it all scanned in, you're fine. So, but it's that can be very devastating if you lose original documents that way. Keep copies of valuable software documentation in other locations. So if you got all your stuff at the firm and that's it, that's a threat. Recovery plan, action plan, updated contact lists, emergency hotline. These are all things that you should definitely throw into your plan, making sure that if there is an emergency, let's say if it is a hurricane, that you have an action plan with steps that need to be taken, and people who have authorizations to do this, that, and the other thing. So phone number list, obviously you need that, so you can talk to people, and where they live, what is their address, what is their phone number at home, so if you can get in touch with them if for some reason everything else goes down. Making sure servers are in a quality environment, such as air conditioned. One of the biggest problems that happens to servers, if they're in a hot environment, the hard drives will die, and when that happens, bad things happen. Also moist areas, you definitely don't want it to be wet. So, and also just replacing your servers every 3 to 4 years. That's critically important to do. So last thing here is, I promised you at the beginning that here's a PDF that you can download, so you didn't have to take any notes. You can get this security PDF here. Just go to lawfirmtechnology.com/images/ lawfirmsecurity.pdf. Okay, and that's all I have to say about security. If you haven't already signed up for lawfirmtechnology.com, again, we are a free organization, one of the the only free associations out there for law firms to try to help you run your law firm better. It has helped me immensely, certainly because I learn things as well, and there's questions that are always being answered, and there's always good questions coming from the members of the group. So again, we're an organization where we help each other, and we look forward to meeting you and maybe working with you and helping you solve a problem of your own, and maybe even getting together at one of our many events, such as this virtual trade show or virtual legal show.com. Okay, well, again, that's it, and thanks again for listening, and if you have any questions, feel free to contact me, cjc@lawfirmtechnology.com. Thank you.